Well, at the end of the first year of his presidency, December 2017, Donald Trump decided to once again give an exclusive interview to the newspaper which he calls the failing New York Times. And each time he gives an interview to that newspaper that he calls the failing New York Times, he's really proving that his real view of it is the important New York Times. And in that interview, the President of the United States said, "I have absolute right to do what I want to do with the Justice Department." Now, that statement was a public threat to the integrity of the mission of everyone working in the Justice Department, including the FBI, which is a part of the Justice Department. Since the J. Edgar Hoover era of the FBI, when presidents routinely tried to use the FBI for their own political purposes, the FBI and the Justice Department have worked very hard to establish operational independence from the president. After President Richard Nixon was caught trying to use the FBI for political purposes and forced to resign the presidency, all subsequent presidents were careful to never appear to be trying to influence the work of the FBI or the Justice Department. When special prosecutors were appointed to investigate presidents or their administrations, it was traditional for the president's attorney general to choose a special prosecutor from the opposing party of the president, so that the investigation would be considered uncompromisable by the special prosecutor's political affinity, if not loyalty to the president. Then Donald Trump changed all that. Donald Trump got a special prosecutor who is a Republican, a special prosecutor who is a member of Donald Trump's own party. But that didn't stop Donald Trump from attacking the special prosecutor for leading a witch hunt, as he called it. Everyone working in the Justice Department has known for a long time now that the integrity of their mission is under attack by the President of the United States, an attack that has been joined by many Republican members of the House of Representatives. And so you have a choice to make if you're working in the Trump Justice Department. You can completely sell out all of your integrity to Donald Trump, which no one in the Justice Department seems to have done, not publicly anyway. You can resign. You can resign from the Trump Justice Department over the principle that the Justice Department must be operationally independent from political pressure from the president. But no one in the Justice Department resigned when the president said last year, "I have absolute right to do what I want to do with the Justice Department." Another president saying something like that could have easily provoked the resignation of the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General and the Assistant Attorneys General. The third option for people working in the Trump Justice Department is to adapt. Adapt to the president's assault on the integrity of the Justice Department and figure out a way to continue doing your jobs while the president continues his attack on the integrity of the Justice Department. And that seems to be what most people in the Justice Department have done. They have adapted. They have adapted to Trump so that they can continue to fulfill the oath they all took to, quote, defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Some people using the old model of what Justice Department officials should do if the president tries to interfere in their investigations predicted yesterday that Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein would simply have to resign on principle after Donald Trump tweeted this. "I hereby demand, and will do so officially tomorrow, that the Department of Justice look into whether or not the FBI, DOJ infiltrated or surveilled the Trump campaign for political purposes, and if any such demands or requests were made by people within the Obama administration, exclamation point." But Rod Rosenstein was ready for this. He could see this one coming. And because this is not the old world order in which Justice Department independence is prized by everyone in Washington, Rod Rosenstein did not resign in protest over a Donald Trump tweet. Instead, within hours of that tweet, yesterday afternoon, Rod Rosenstein issued a statement saying, if anyone did infiltrate or surveil participants in a presidential campaign for inappropriate purposes, we need to know about it and take appropriate action. Now, understand, Rod Rosenstein is in a position to already know whether anyone did infiltrate or surveil participants in a presidential campaign. He already knows that that did not happen. Rod Rosenstein certainly already knows what has been publicly reported, that someone in England had a couple of conversations with a couple of people who were affiliated with the Trump campaign, and that source in England told the FBI about those conversations. That is not infiltrated or surveilled, as Donald Trump put it. So Rod Rosenstein already knows that no one is going to find that the FBI infiltrated or surveilled the Trump campaign for political purposes, as the Trump tweet put it. Rod Rosenstein knows that there was an investigation of Russian interference in the presidential campaign and possible Russian influence and assistance to the Trump campaign, and that investigation was not conducted for political purposes, but for national security purposes. And so it is no big deal that Rod Rosenstein and the Justice Department, in response to the president's tweet, quote, asked the Inspector General to expand the ongoing review of the FISA application process to include determining whether there was any impropriety or political motivation in how the FBI conducted its counterintelligence investigation of persons suspected of involvement with the Russian agents who interfered in the 2016 presidential election. So yesterday afternoon, the president demands via tweet that the Justice Department investigate itself, and the Justice Department says, okay, we will. And in the statement announcing the investigation, very conclusively, without a shadow of a doubt, the statement says that Russian agents interfered in the 2016 presidential election. In that same statement, the Justice Department says that it was a counterintelligence investigation. The president's tweet yesterday came a day before a long-scheduled meeting at the White House with the president, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, FBI Director Christopher Wray, and the Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coats. And so media speculation was filled with the question of, would Rosenstein's basically passing of the Trump tweet to the Justice Department Inspector General be good enough for the president? Will the president demand something grander than an Inspector General investigation? Will the president demand a new special prosecutor? When he met with Rod Rosenstein today at 3 p.m., and once again, Rod Rosenstein appears to be one of the expert adapters to the presidency of Donald Trump, because the president did accept Rod Rosenstein's handing off of the president's demand to the Inspector General. And so Rod Rosenstein did not resign today. That's the big news. Rod Rosenstein did not resign today. Rod Rosenstein did not do what most members of previous Justice Departments would have done if a president publicly threatened the integrity of their mission. Rod Rosenstein did not give the president what the president has wanted so badly for so long: Rod Rosenstein's resignation. Instead, Rod Rosenstein gave the president an investigation by the Inspector General, the lowest level investigation that the Justice Department conducts. And it is an investigation to which Rod Rosenstein already knows all the answers. Rod Rosenstein knows that the Inspector General is not going to find that the FBI, DOJ infiltrated or surveilled the Trump campaign for political purposes. The president did not get Rod Rosenstein's resignation today, so the president will not be appointing a new Deputy Attorney General tomorrow who would be empowered to immediately close down Robert Mueller's investigation. And instead of a new Deputy Attorney General closing down the Mueller investigation tomorrow, Rod Rosenstein will go back to work tomorrow at his desk in the Justice Department, overseeing and supporting Robert Mueller's investigation of the President of the United States. Joining our discussion now, Jill Wine-Banks, former Assistant Watergate Special Prosecutor and MSNBC contributor; Harry Litman, former federal prosecutor and Deputy Assistant Attorney General under President Clinton; and David Frum, senior editor for The Atlantic and author of Trumpocracy: The Corruption of the American Republic. And Jill Wine-Banks, I want to go to you with your prosecutorial experience and your reaction to how Rod Rosenstein handled this latest public crisis.
I think Rod Rosenstein played this exactly right. It's not an ideal world, because in an ideal world, the president would not be demanding this. And if he did demand it, the answer would be, I know the answer, and the answer is that you have no evidence to support this, and we only start investigations when there is probable cause, and there is no probable cause here. There is nothing to be investigated. That would be the ideal answer in an ideal world. But in this case, we have to play chess with the president who doesn't know how to play chess. And the fact that Rod Rosenstein is still the Deputy Attorney General is a good thing. And so I think he handled it appropriately. I'm outraged that the president is asking for this. I'm also disturbed because I believe that the president and his base will not believe the answer when it comes out, saying there is nothing here. There is no evidence to support it, and the investigation was totally appropriate. It started based on someone from a foreign country reporting to the FBI that there was something going on between Russia and your campaign. And that evidence was true and correct and deserved to be investigated. So it's a very tricky question, because after this investigation, it's still not going to be believed, even though it should have been believed right now today. Rod Rosenstein could have said, I know I've investigated this, and I know that there's nothing there.
Harry Litman, to Jill's point, Rod Rosenstein, better than anyone, since unlike the Attorney General who's recused himself, Rod Rosenstein is overseeing everything. He knows everything, is in a position to know everything about the way all of these investigative processes have started, what they know now, what they've discovered. So he's sitting there tonight knowing, it seems, the answer to what it is the president wants investigated.
Yeah, but of course that's a strength, as Jill says, that can inform his actions. I would use a baseball analogy instead of chess here. I don't think Trump is so subtle, but he threw a beanball right at the head, and Rosenstein was able to sort of foul it off. The IG referral is actually the right place for something like this. The absolute wrong place is a criminal investigation. It was outrageous and gruesome for Trump to request it. But when anybody, citizen or the president of the United States, says an FBI agent has acted inappropriately, that's the IG's province. So it isn't outrageous, and I think it's correct that he was adroit and able. This was a temporizing that I think makes sense. I would really distinguish it, though, with the other action where they've agreed to show the confidential information tomorrow to Nunes and company. That's an abomination. Well,
on that one, David Frum, there's some question about exactly what they will see. John Kelly at the White House saying that they're going to review the information. I don't think we know yet exactly what they will be shown and what will be revealed to them in that kind of meeting.
May I, with trepidation, disagree with the entire learned panel, with you, with Rachel, and with Ben Wittes, and that means I'm probably wrong, but I'm going to disagree with all of them.
Please do.
Look, I understand why people say that Rod Rosenstein did the right thing, because they are thinking very much in the way lawyers think. A lawyer doing his job properly is confronted with a grossly improper and maybe illegal, maybe not illegal, demand from the president, and he's fended it off, and he's lived to fight another day. And it would be completely inappropriate for the lawyer to think politically and to think, I am going to be fired one day. And my job here is to find the maximally damaging time for that to happen, and to pick that moment at the right moment, and then to do as much as I can to draw public attention to it. Today may well have been that day. And I think there's a strong case that the country would today, I understand all the reasons why the country is well off and well served by Mr. Rosenstein, but here is another scenario, which is he comes to the president and says, I won't do it, sir, and I won't quit. You can fire me, but I want you to know, and at that point the FBI director is also at the meeting, says, if you fire him, I resign. And by the way, Mr. Rosenstein has 3 other resignations in his pocket. And you respond. Rachel said a very good thing. You respond to the lizard brain. You treat this like a a confrontation with a dangerous predator, and you show it what you have. And maybe it eats you anyway, and then we're into constitutional crisis territory. But this slow-moving dissolution of normal expectations is also, maybe crisis is the wrong word, but it is a corrosion and a corruption. We are all worse off than we were. And at some point, someone's going to have to fight, and maybe today was that day.
Jill, David really writes a very compelling scene there, and I suppose the question for Rod Rosenstein is simply, is this that day? That evaluative moment that David puts in the scene where Rod Rosenstein is looking for, if it's going to be his exit, is this the maximum impact exit that he could have? I, for one, would suspect there are other days coming to Rod Rosenstein where he'll be faced with this decision.
I think I agree with you. David definitely made a very compelling case, and it is something that has concerned me almost since the election, because I think we saw in Hitler's day, and I know people don't like that analogy, but he didn't change everything all at once. He ate away at the fabric of the society, a little at a time. First it was one thing, then it was another little extension, and then another extension. And so David's point is very well taken, that that's what we're seeing, is one step at a time. But we faced this during Watergate. When the Saturday Night Massacre happened, it wasn't clear whether we, the staff, had been fired or only Archie Cox had been fired. And we debated if we should resign in protest over Archie's being fired. And Archie met with us and said, absolutely not. You know this case. If you leave, it will delay things. It will hurt the final outcome. You need to stay as long as you possibly can to get the maximum evidence that you can. And so we did not resign in protest, and we were reinstated. It turned out we had been fired. The office had been abolished. But because of the public reaction of absolute horror at what had happened, President Nixon was forced to reappoint a new special prosecutor, and Mr. Bork, who had taken over as Attorney General, was forced to reappoint us as an office. So it may be that they're very close to having enough evidence that they can use to show the American public what is really happening, and that if they can stay for even a little longer, it's a good thing. We don't know that. And right now, we just have to trust that Rosenstein made the right decision, and that at some point, people will stand up and say enough is sufficient, and we have to defend democracy.
Harry Litman, I was very confident in my view of this until I heard David Frum lay out that scene, which is so morally powerful and compelling. And I just actually rewatched Judgment at Nuremberg this weekend, the movie in which the defendants, after being found guilty, were complaining about how can you blame the 6 million on us? We didn't have our, they were judges in that case, you'll remember. We just sentenced individual people. And there's the great Spencer Tracy line that Abby Mann, the screenwriter, gave him at the end of the movie, where he says, the first time you sentenced someone who you knew was not guilty, that's when you became responsible for all of them.
Look, that's a sympathetic line, but I think what David is portraying, and he does do it compellingly, is essentially a political analysis. When can I do the most damage? I wouldn't say that's the analysis. The analysis is, when have I been asked to do something that just violates the DNA of the Justice Department? And at that point, Rosenstein should stand up. And in fact, there's the tangible prospect of going to court and winning. But I just don't think it's this IG referral. It would be, however, the playing ball with Nunes and showing a confidential informant.
Harry Litman, Jill Wine-Banks, thanks for your expertise in this panel.